Greetings. Welcome to Extra Hours, part of the officehours.global network. Find out more about what we do, officehours.global. And if you want to sign up and join, get emails every day, /join, officehours.global/join, and you can get more info there. Do you know we've been doing this for 5 years or so? And one of the things that we were doing on the daily show, this is a weekly show that happens at night in the States. Clearly, I'm not in the States. At least I don't sound like I am. I'm sitting in South Australia, in Adelaide, South Australia, and I was up in the night when we first started this. I was joining at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to join the show, which was fine during COVID. I didn't have much else going on at the time, so I was able to join and meet a bunch of people. And what we used to do is a bunch of questions for the first hour, and the second hour we'd sort of dive into a particular topic and have a special guest. And so it's funny because now we're not really doing second hours as far as a second hour show. But we are still using the term second hour. And so tonight, we're kind of doing a second hour as our first hour of this show, and we won't do a second hour because we're doing the second hour as the first hour. All right, that makes a lot of sense. For people that have been around office hours for a while would totally get what I was saying there. And so a couple of people we're going to hang out with for this hour have been around office hours for a long time. Firstly, a regular contributor is Jeff Keithley, who is just casually having another conversation as we're talking now. Do you need a minute, Jeff? He does.
I'm sorry. As soon as this show opened, of course I get a frantic call. The site lost a generator today, like a trailer-sized generator, like 40-foot trailer-sized generator here in Cincinnati. So we have been fighting, trying to get everything back up. We had everything working. I left. I was like, okay. And that's right about the same time you texted me and say, hey, do you want to be on the show? I'm like, yeah, sure. I get back to the hotel, no problem.
What could go wrong?
45 minutes for an Uber. And then finally I get here and I get a call as soon as I get on with you. And they're like, the fire alarm's going off now. All the power is out. How do we turn it back on? So another day ending in Y. Just another day ending in Y.
Well, you do what you need to do. And if you need, you're okay. All right. Yeah. So it's good to have you with us, Jeff. Thank you. And then you be in LA at the moment. Noah Sargent back there. Hello, Noah. Welcome.
Good to see you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell me, Noah, when was it that you first joined Office Hours? It was pretty early on, right?
Yeah, I think I was maybe 6 months or a year into the office hours start. I came through Doug Johnson. He mentioned that there was a bunch of techs getting together, and I got excited about that because, I was still kind of kickstarting my business and figuring stuff out, and felt like it would be a great community to get plugged into, and absolutely was. So it's great.
Awesome. So I want to say hello to a couple of people, Tommy and Vic and Rick. And there's a few extras that are joined in the chat now. I want to remind you that this whole show is being switched in the cloud using Vector, and brilliant bit of software that's running really well in the cloud. And we've done 50, 60 episodes of this every week. And part of the reason for what we're doing here is an excuse to play around with the gear and just sort of, test it out. The best way to test gear often is actually to have events that you're doing. Because you never really get that true experience until you've got real content, real time, and you're playing around with it in real time. Inevitably, when you're testing out gear, you rush through things and then it doesn't feel quite like, you don't really get a good idea of how it works in a real event. And so that's part of the reason we're doing it. Now, why I say all that is that in after hours, which is a Zoom meeting that runs 24/7, we have the interface running, and so you can see the whole show being switched, which is a way I need to remind myself that you can see a multi-view all the time. And so even when I'm not switched to program, I can still be seen. And so this is just note to self, not to pick my nose when or Jeff, who's eating at the moment. So there are but enjoy that. You can go to the after hours link and jump in there. If you don't know what all this is about, if you go to officehours.global/join, you will get an email, and there is links in there to join after hours. So I want to tease people, Noah, with just a couple of things that they could be thinking about questions, and then I just want to give context of your company and things. But you recently did the Tesla Takeover event. That's right?
Branded X Takeover now. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. And then so we'll be able to talk about that because you handle all the production of that. So there might be some questions that people have. There was another event you said you might mention as well. What was that one?
Yeah, that one was called the BETX Experience. So Black Entertainment Television did their award show, and then they had pretty much like a conference or a festival. And so they had different exhibitors within the Black community, artists, musicians, etc. So we did their main stage production, and that was prior to the X Takeover. And yeah, so that had like Gorilla and Mustard and a bunch of other big people in the African American community, Black community.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So you're it's been a busy season for you.
Thankfully, it was so dead the first part of the year, and then it picks up. That's production for you, the ebbs and flows for sure. So.
Yeah. All right. So we'll get to those, dive into that. But I'm just context of what your company is and sort of the makeup of what your kind of career journey has been and how you got to where you are now.
Sure. Yeah, I'll share a little background. So I was the kid who grew up holding a camera, right? And I made a bunch of films as a 13-year-old, like wanting to be Spielberg. By the time I was done with high school, I was the president of my media club. I'd shot 40 short films, and I was certified in Final Cut Pro 6 as an editor. So I was a little bit ahead of my time, jumped into college, did a lot of fun stuff there, but knew that I wanted to go into filmmaking. My mom actually passed away when I was 18. And so my magnum opus, or my big life goal, is to make a movie about her life and kind of tell her story. So I started that. I shot 29 interviews, and that's something that's on the back burner. Eventually I'll get to. But yeah, came out to Hollywood in 2012, started working in commercial productions, and for about a year and a half, 2 years, worked over to television and film, and just started observing and learning and seeing what the big dogs were doing. I worked on like 30 different TV shows and films. And then kind of started my own business out of not really a drive, but like out of necessity of like, people keep asking me to do work and I don't have a good umbrella to put it under. And I should probably figure this out. And so, I kind of started the business that way. And then right before I got married, I looked at the year-end statements, working in Hollywood and then doing my own production. And I realized I was making 10 times the money per hour, basically doing my own thing in corporate and like running my own business. And I was like, what's the point of slugging, making minimum wage, like working 70 or 80 hours on a TV show? Like, it's cool to say you worked on these big productions, but like, I have the creative control and I have the freedom to experiment and do these other things, like on my own terms, so to speak. And so that was the birth of my company. I kind of rebranded and doubled down right before COVID. And so my company is called Corporate Streams. We primarily focus on live events and live streaming. And so, yeah, it's been a great journey, a lot of great people along the way, a lot of great projects along the way. And so that was 2018, 2019 when the company officially started, and then obviously went through the COVID season, and here we are 7 years later. It's been a wild ride for sure. So
And so what is the staff makeup? I mean, obviously, like all of us, we use lots of freelancers, and you contract people in for projects. But do you have sort of a core team that work with you?
Yeah, it's a great question. So at our peak, we had 12 people in either part-time or full-time roles. At this point, I had a major client who did not continue with us on their contract, and then I had two other contracts that got the companies, that got bought out. So they basically aren't working with us. So the company's definitely shifted a lot in the last year, and so it's basically myself, one other full-time person, and a bunch of freelancers at this point. And so, I'm sure a lot of people who've ran their own business can identify with that of like, you scale up or down to what you need. And I would love to grow back bigger. It's a lot more enjoyable working with people because I'm a bit of an extrovert, and having the camaraderie of a team is always great. But at the same time, it's like, I need to know as the entrepreneur, business owner, how to do at least a little bit of everything. If I want to make my business happen, for sure.
Nice. I heard recently someone commented that was in an interview, and they were talking about how Hollywood is ran by the working class. And I was like, I'd never thought of that before, because you kind of think of Hollywood as this big, big budgets, lots of money, fame or whatever, and the idea of working on movies and TV and things, it must be so lucrative, or you just kind of have this feeling of it. But actually, the people that are doing all the work are not necessarily paid all that well, right? And that would, just to your point, that wasn't great.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so above the line is what everybody thinks you're getting paid. So above the line are the producers and the people who can get long-term residuals on a project, right? And that would be great. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the point in my career where I was able to get above the line credits on production. So I was below the line, which is essentially labor, right? I'm the equivalent of a guy flipping burgers, but in the film business. So I was the guy on like The Mandalorian. One of my jobs was to make sure the background actors were in costume at the right time, at the right place. Or the Spielberg movie I worked on, my job was to be at the baby wrangler. So I had like two 11-month-old babies. It was twins, and I was with their mom all day, making sure they were at the right place at the right time, right? So that was as an assistant director or as a PA, getting that job done. Obviously, as you move up, and if you join a union in Hollywood, you can get a standard rate, right? And that's usually a six-figure gig for most people. So it is a stable living, but it does take time and contacts and stuff to get to that point. So, yeah.
I mean, obviously you don't, lots of people don't necessarily work in particular industries for the money necessarily. And so if you were just about wanting to generate income, you could probably find other ways of doing that. You might have been able to drive Uber or get something, you could have done something to make more, right? But working on some of those films, it's this type of thing that I would love to do, is just kind of almost be a fly on the wall, in that, and to just be able to see some of that. And so it must have been cool, even in a very basic role, to still be around, play, kind of playing a key part.
Absolutely. There's definitely exciting moments. And when you see, a famous person like J.J. Abrams for the first time, or, somebody you would really admire or seen a bunch, like, it's just really incredible. But then at the same time, you've got to be in the gear of like, I'm in game mode, right? I'm work mode. I remember the first time I met Nathan Fillion from Firefly. My job was first team PA, right? So my job was to make sure that cast members were in the right spot at the right time. I knew where they were at all times. If they took a bathroom break, I should know where they are. If they're taking a phone call or going to the cast trailer, right? So I just remember going up to him and saying, "Hey, my name's Noah. It's great to meet you. I'm going to be, shadowing you. So if you need anything, just let me know." And he spent 5 minutes like talking to me, like getting to know me, and then like for the next like 3 hours, like obviously they're setting up and getting ready to shoot, but I just remember him conversation after conversation going up to people, the gaffer, the key grip, the assistant camera, whatever, like all these different positions. And he knew his crew because they'd been shooting the TV show Castle. That's the show I was working on for like 7 years. So like they became this close-knit family. And to kind of, like you're saying, be a part of that or be a fly on the wall, like I definitely remember that fondly. And there's many stories like that. That's probably one of my favorite things about being a part of this office hours community, is like you hear people and they get to tell their versions of stories like that too, which is awesome and really fun.
That's really cool. Right. So we fast forward a bunch, and you're I think it was last year. Was it last year that you did the X Takeover event? Was that the first one?
We did it last summer as well. Yeah. That was our first one.
Yep. Okay. And what's just I didn't get to see it. What's the general concept of what the event is for? What's it about?
Yeah. So X Takeover is essentially a celebration of Elon companies is a quick synopsis of it. So people who enjoy and are investors in either SpaceX, Neuralink, Tesla, the Boring Company, like, so they're basically super fans of Elon. So it's pro Elon group for sure. And so, yeah, they started initially as the Tesla takeover, which is the Freudian slip, so to speak, of the first part of our conversation, but they kind of expanded into that larger X Takeover brand. And so they do events across the world now under that brand of X Takeover.
And so there's a bunch of people on site, like there's a certain number of people that come on site, and then of course it's a big live stream. And so your responsibility is the production across the whole event.
Yeah. So there's about 1,000 attendees, or at least there was at this last event. Prior, like the 2024 event, I think had a little bit more. I think it was like 1,300 or 1,500. And then so we have attendees. Then we have exhibitors, right? People who sell products within the Tesla space. They're a Tesla adjacent products, or, Elon adjacent products, for lack of a better term. And so there's like car vendors and floor mats and window tinting and wraps and like all these fun car things. And then production side of stuff. So we handle the main stage, right? So there's basically social media influencers, and there was 34 influencers at the X Takeover. So our job was to facilitate that group of folks. There's 13 or 14 panels with different sizes, right? From 2 people to 6 people. And so we helped basically capture, but also broadcast that live, and also to the in-person audience for those sessions on main stage.
Very cool. And I heard it was just you and just a heap of Optimus robots. Like it was no one else was there, right?
All Optimus. It's just Jeff and myself plugging away. We even did the Optimus halftime show dance. It was great.
taught Optimus vMix, and it was great. It was all,
auto tracking with the FR7s. Could have taken a nap with all that.
Not quite yet. We joke, but it's probably not that far away. We probably could do some of that. So you might have some show and tell. You got some pictures you could show us some.
Absolutely.
Some of the gear that you use to make it all happen.
For sure. Let me go ahead and make sure I have my right videos here. So I'm going to mute this here. So this is my prep shot here. And this is what we call the Gen 3 Video Village cart. And it's designed to have workstations. So there's a workstation on the side, 2 workstations technically in the front, and then 1 on the side. And so this is like the prep that went in ahead of time. I'm going to skip forward and skip this video, but go ahead.
Just tell us what's the journey of that cart, as in, is that entirely custom built, or what is that?
Yeah, it actually was. So it was designed and built by myself and the team. And like I said, this is the 3rd generation of it. So there's 2 that came before it. And the first one, was 7 years ago now. And so that's a whole nother rabbit hole we can definitely jump down to, like, go through and show you, like, this is what the Gen 1 cart looked like. And so it was slightly different ergonomics and setup. Choose your own adventure. Either one is fine with me, Grant, if you want me to go to the carts or talk more about the event. But
let's start. We'll start with the cart, because I think it is
Sure.
fascinating that where you came up with the idea to. I mean, in some ways, it's kind of like a Hollywood cart, right? As in that are used on movies, and you see like a sound cart and that type of thing. Is that where it came from? The idea.
100%. So I was looking at Hollywood and seeing these 50-foot trucks and the grip truck rolling off with a dolly cart and an audio cart on camera and a camera DIT cart, and so I'm seeing Hollywood with these awesome 10-inch wheels, and then I'm schlepping Pelican cases around, like getting pissed off, frustrated, because we're having to build out our systems. And one of my shoots looked like this, where we had 20 cases that you're flying with, and there's very limited things that you can do when you're flying, right? And so I was like, all right, how do I take what these big productions are doing, and how do I scale it down and fit it into something that's more plausible for me? And so at first I had Rubbermaid carts, which were just plastic carts, and we threw gear on it, and it worked for a little bit. And then about 2 or 3 years in, I was like, there's got to be something better. And so I sketched up a bunch of ideas of how carts could be designed, and the different tiers and layers to it. My buddy Justin, who was a former mechanic who turned camera operator, spent some time with me, and we bought a welder, and we just started building and designing and growing and trying to figure it out. And so before you knew it, I'm going to pull up another picture here. We had the frames built. Right. And so this is 1/2-inch square tubing. It's 29 by 60 inches. And it was designed to hold equipment, but also hold a video village layer, so to speak. And so prior to COVID, we had this kind of triple setup where we had 3 people on a cart, sound mixer, video director, director or producer, right? And we noticed post-COVID, people didn't necessarily want to sit that close together, right? And so it kind of brought us back to the drawing board of all right, how do we do this, but spread us out a little bit? And that was one of Jeff's first points of feedback for me because he got some time on the Gen 1 cart as well. He was like, it doesn't fit me. and so needless to say, we decided to rethink that a little bit.
So you can have 3 people, or you can have one Jeff. So
his persona just dominates the space.
Exactly. It's not about size. It's about his capability to be able to do so many. He could do those 3 roles in one. That's what it is. Yeah. And
that's actually one of the advantages of the Gen 1 cart versus Gen 3 is if you are a one-man band, you can run all 3 stations. But at the same time, I try my best to not overburden a single crew member if I can, or a single computer, single workstation. That's at least my philosophy around it. So, so we started designing again, and this is what our Gen 3 cart looks like. The only real difference between Gen 3 and Gen 2 is the wings. So you'll see on the left here, there's 2 laptops. So the Gen 2 cart didn't have those laptops basically, or that slide out. And so this cart was a little bit shorter. So it's 29 by 48 inches. And the TV folds up on top as well. And so it basically, go ahead.
You've got that TV with a Perspex cover. Is that just protection, or what's the thinking there?
Yeah, so we do have plexiglass. I was back and forth on this. Jeff's feedback, and feel free to jump in, Jeff. But basically, it protects the TV at the cost of extra reflections. So it's been an ongoing debate of do we keep the plexi to try to prolong the TV, or do we let the TV die sooner, but then not have to worry about the reflections as much, And so from the beginning, I'll show my Gen 1 cart that does have the plexi on it.
Or have it removable in a way, maybe something like that, where
it definitely is removable. It just takes time. So it's a little bit of a pain in the butt to take it off, to be honest. But so the Gen 3 cart with the wings is definitely a better setup, and that's kind of what we used. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So as for the Takeover, was that then that was switching? You had a LED wall as well. Were you switching through the same cart for all of the on-site video as well as the broadcast? Is that how that worked?
Yeah. In this particular case, so we basically have 3 tiers or levels of systems for our offerings, right? So we try to like standardize 3 different types of packages, kind of like small, medium, and large, right? And so the largest production gets a bigger switcher, right? And the smallest production gets a smaller switcher. This one was kind of in the middle. And so I went back and forth on whether we should go to the ATEM 2 ME or 4 ME or stay down at the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO for switching. And we went ahead and went with the ISO because of the capture capabilities. Like my bigger rig has hyperdex for everything, but I was curious to see if I can get away with basically the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO, which we were able to. From an ergonomics perspective, it's not as ideal as having like the full ATEM advanced control panel on our bigger systems, but from a cost perspective and a setup perspective, we try to keep it slim, basically. So yeah, to answer your question directly, yes, we had the one switcher basically do both IMAG and broadcast. In this case, though, we had Jeff with a different machine that controlled the processor for the LED wall, so he could, if he needed to, change the image there. But we had that through an aux channel through the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO, and so we could send that separately. We also had a separate aux for Elon, so he didn't have to look at himself at least as much when he's talking to us remotely.
And so what other software, what other systems were in there? So you've got an ATEM that doing heavy lifting. What other in the video world was there?
Yeah, so I can show that a little bit. So Jarrett is running our PTZs, so it's FR7s, and he ran 4 of them. And then in front of me here, we use Livestream Studio 6 as our software encoder. Then we can see a cart.
We can see a cart at the moment, the back of a cart. Is that what you're?
Yeah. Can you see? Yeah. Do you see the picture moving as I move the screen here?
Nope.
Let me try again. Oh, I see. It was a user error. Let's try that again. So yes. Jeff's son, Jarrett, is our PTZ operator, excuse me. And then we have our streaming computers on the wing down here. And so on the streaming computers, Livestream Studio 6 is what I'm using. The wing over to the right is being used for Zoom. And so we use Zoom ISO. So shout out to that programming team. In the back, Kate is back there using ProPresenter for playback. And if we had a deck, we went through those computers as well. And then, so we can talk a little bit about Dante and our system there, but basically all of the computers were routed through Dante. And then we did try to have our ProPresenter computers on Dante Via, which was a complete failure. And then the other thing that did not work well for us was we made a mistake with we used Reaper for our multi-channel recording for stems for audio channels. And we basically set the Reaper records to Resilio sync. So Resilio allows you to sync files locally on the network. And so we were syncing files and essentially filling up the internal hard drives of all of the computers. So thankfully we caught that error pretty quickly and got it resolved, but that could have crashed our whole system, like if we weren't paying close enough attention to that. So
yeah, wow. What we've got, I think we've got a couple of questions, but just to complete the picture, what was the audio console? Or you might have had a couple too, right? Because you had front of house.
So we did use the Yamaha DM3 as our only mixer in this case. So we had a mix out for streaming, and then a mix minus mix 2 was for the Zoom ISO, and that was all done through Dante as well. prior to the Yamaha DM3, we were on the Q16 and the M32. I still own one of my M32s, but I'm actually probably going to sell it because 95% of what we do is we'll work with the Yamaha DM3, and then if we need a bigger board, we'll rent it at this point.
Yeah, we're kind of the same. We've got a DM3 here as well, and it's great. Works really well.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question from Zach Jeff is, does our guest have a Dante Via story?
Yes, we do have a Dante.
So it was on the Pro Presenter machine. Was there something else running on that meant that you couldn't just use DVS?
Yes. So on my test day, I decided to try to push the Mac Mini. It's an M1 MacBook Air, and I was like, can I run Reaper to do ISO stem recordings?
I see.
And Spotify, which is pretty low lift, and Pro Presenter. The answer is technically yes. It could run all three programs. It had 20 to 25% usage. So from a processing perspective, it had plenty of headroom. The problem was Dante Via basically corrupted our system. And so when Dante Via was working, we were getting both latency packet issues and connection issues. So we were having dropouts in audio. And so this is me like spilling all the baggage here and all the things that didn't work. But basically, in the tests, like, because I had a prep day and I built out the systems and I ran everything, and everything worked on the test day. And then on the show day, of course, it doesn't work the way you hope, right? And so on the day, we kind of had to rethink it when we started hearing audio dropouts. And unfortunately, some of the audio recordings got messed up because of it. Thankfully, we were able to recover the majority of it. And what we try to do is have a primary backup record in everything we do. The thing that I did not do correctly was I didn't send audio from the mixer back into the ATEM, because I was like, well, we have it on Reaper and we actually have it on two computers, so that's primary backup. That was a bad mistake. I should have just sent it to it, even if it's a left-right program record. Like, having that at a minimum would have saved that 3 or 4 minutes that we lost because of the Dante Via issues. So anyway,
well, and thank you for sharing the weaknesses. It's always hard, particularly when in the 2020 vision of hindsight, it's just like, why did I not just do that? Like, it would have taken an extra few minutes. But when you're juggling so many things, it is easy to forget. And I've done exactly the same thing where a show just recently where I had a backup record and it was all fine, but the send that I was sending from the DM3 didn't have the Q&A mics, routed to it, as an example, right? And so, and we managed around it, and we did get it on a Zoom recording. We tend to always do this now too, because we have enough Zoom accounts. Why wouldn't I just run Zoom as a backup, even just as an audio backup? It just is like, it's an off-site cloud recording audio backup, and it's just sitting there. And so we tend to do that on shows now, and that saved my butt, because it was because it did have all of the right sends in it.
I was thinking about that too. Is like, we only streamed 3 out of the 12 or 13 presentations. If all of them were streamed, we would have had a backup, stream record. But because that one session wasn't streamed and the local recordings failed, and I didn't plug in the ATEM to backup audio, because of all of those things, we lost some footage. And that's the worst feeling in the world, of telling your client, hey, look, I screwed this up. Let's make this right. I don't know what that looks like yet, but we're going to do everything we can to make it right. So
let's get everyone back up and record it again. Yeah, that's right. It's not an option.
Right.
One thing that I've played around with is on the ISO, that ATEM Mini Extreme, it does do an ISO audio record as well, and so wherever possible, I try to have ISO audio going into the cameras, and so then I end up with ISO audio, and so, but of course you've got to have cameras that will ideally they take an XLR, and then it's easy to run out of XLR outputs on the DM3, and so there's all those limitations. Jeff smiling away.
I have
there.
a suggestion for that, actually.
Okay.
They're called embedders, and you just use an SDI embedder right there at the rack. There's no reason to take it all the way back to the camera. So you just drop a couple embedders, and then at least you can pipe that in. For
that's true.
a lot of workflows, matter of fact, we did this with Blue's setup, and I sent them back to him because he loaned them to me for a while, and I used them for a couple of years. SonFX makes it Dante to SDI embedder. It'll do up to 16 channels. So you drop that in on, say, your channel 1, your camera 1. Now, it is a $2,000 little box, but it's a great box. It's reliable as can be. But that's what I found was the way to do it. Then I'm embedding it into the SDI channel. So, yeah, then whatever downstream is that you have can take that audio as a backup, too.
And then that's nice. SDI can do 16 channels too, right? So you have essentially stems.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So then that'll give you stems from it. And essentially, since that DM3 only has 16 Dante channels, yay, Yamaha. That's one of the biggest contentions. I love that little board, but it's like, come on, 16, really? Give me some more. But yes, that's what I would do, is just map those channels and do a program mix on 1 and 2, and then start breaking down the whatever else you need as auxes or mixes or whatever from there out. And I can confirm that yes, VIA is the devil. Mama said so.
Speaking of the devil, do you have any other feedback? I know you took a call, but like I'm one of those like open books. So if you have something, it's not going to hurt my feelings of like this sucks or do this better, because I love the improvement. So I'm putting you on the spot to put me on the spot of what we could have done better.
All right. I love the new cart design. I do like it better. I'm not as well, right now my knee is busted, so I'm definitely a sitter, more of a stander, but I never was a stander. And I definitely saw that in your workflow, that you're a stander, because that can't hold you down. You're like a little flea, floating around all the time and stuff. So I don't like having to, I can't move when you're in those director chairs. And so like you can't just push back and go take care of something. It's just not comfortable to get out of, I guess. It's like you fall out of it, and then it's right there. And if there's somebody right behind you, you're knocking them over. So that's only my biggest thing. And then get rid of the ATEM and get a real switcher. Yes, that's it.
Appreciate that. Actually, next time you're on set with me, I'm gonna bring a chair and I'm gonna have your name on it, and it's gonna be like the chair I'm in that swivels and has wheels. And
nice little roller.
I like wheels. Yeah,
I'll give you a roller.
That's good.
Yeah, it's just one of those things I got used to for a long time in our MCRs, is we have the ability to move back and forth, and that's something I miss. I can't just slide over and take over a position if I'm in one of those director type chairs. So I know Hollywood likes them and all that, but I don't. For me, it's just I'd rather have something I could move or at least get out of the way quickly if I needed to jump over there and jump on another machine to take over for somebody else. That's all. Yeah, but you've come light years in that design. And get rid of the plexiglass. Got to get rid of that. Yes, it's gone. Take the loss. It's okay. I squinted the whole time because I couldn't see in the reflection. And I was like, "Is it in focus?" They were asking me. It's like Jarrett was running camera. He's like, "Is it in focus?" I go, "I don't know." He goes, "I can't see it either." So we were guessing. Yay, Sony, right? I'm glad they had good autofocus.
That's a plus for sure.
Especially those outdoor events, a Vision Pro would be perfect for that. Because you could just put a headset on, and now you're like that's one of the things I love about the Vision Pro, is that I can go sit out in the park in the direct sunlight and have essentially four 4K screens in front of me. Like it's a pretty cool way to do it. I've messed around with switching a show, but to your point, Jeff, about stepping away and doing something that's not exactly easy when you're strapped in with cans and a headset on and eye goggles and in the director's chair. You're locked in. So I'm interested, Noah, because I hear a little bit of a contradiction in something you were saying earlier.
Sweet.
You were talking about like, having not stretching your human resources or or your physical resources, and so like giving it one task essentially. But then you were talking about a MacBook Air and giving it 3 tasks. What was the thinking there? Like, was it a space thing? Was it, was it that, what was the reason
Yeah, it's a
behind
great
that?
question. I think the short answer is I had 10 laptops all in use. And I was like, I think I'm good with 10. And it's like, no, actually I needed 12 or 14 or,
Right.
you never have enough computers. And it was the choice of, do I spend the money and pick up a few more machines before the start of show, or do I try to make this work with the constraints and the budget and the gear I already have? And so to your point, yeah, I can completely see that as like contradiction for sure. And so moving forward, it would make the most sense to have them broken out. And so if you look at the carts as a whole, I think one of the wings was basically unused. And so we can, I'll purchase 2 more laptops and we'll have basically 2 more machines to help balance that out a little bit better for sure.
Do you have I flip-flop between using like Mac Minis, and like I love the size and that's all great, and then I'm going, but do you know what? Having a laptop that you've got instant keyboard, mouse, and monitor control, and you can walk straight to it. You don't have to switch. Some Jeff. I said Mac.
I'm waiting for Jeff.
I lost Jeff when I said Mac Mini, but just replace that with NUC or whatever you want to say, right? As a little PC box.
I use Mac
laptop.
Minis, but I agree. I like little NUCs or whatever. Yeah, but I mean, that's what you had in there before, Noah, and I like that workflow. I think that the biggest challenge in any of these trying to be small and powerful at the same time, and also trying to do microservices at the same time, which is effectively what you're doing. You're breaking down a task per machine. To me, in my opinion, is you would need to take the next step and then use a KVM type solution to be able to see everything, having a monitoring solution so you can see all the heads at all times, and that's effectively you're building out an MCR at that point. And that is without a doubt one of the biggest challenges is like how much do I give it as a task, but then again, does it make sense to put yet another physical? My biggest problem with the MacBook style is it does take up a lot of desk space. You end up same thing for these guys doing Zoom forums that are just 20 laptops. I mean, why? I could do that out of one machine or 2 machines and a virtual machines. That's it. 1 2U rack, and that's all I need for space. So, and then I have monitoring of each one of those after that too. So that's what I would suggest definitely in this environment. I like the idea of putting all those in, and then they're pre-wired. They're already there. They're racked. They're not bouncing around. You're not worried. My biggest worry is that USB-C coming unplugged or Lightning coming unplugged, Thunderbolt, whatever.
Thunderbolt.
Yeah, it's just that to me gives me the heebie-jeebies. I just don't like it. So I prefer to go with something that you can tie down all the cables going into it so it doesn't come off. That's my idea.
No, I'm all about, like, the philosophy there is like whatever can be pre-wired should be pre-wired, right? And so my first gen carts, I'll show them again. We had Mac Minis in there, and there's little folding televisions, 17-inch portable monitors that I built to support that. And so the reasoning of moving to the laptop setup was frankly only for audio. Sorry, I'm showing the window there. I'm sorry, not audio. Frankly, only for the wings, right? So I really was pushing for the design to have Mac Minis at first, and then I wanted the multi-view, but then I realized unless I did the KVM system across the board, which Jeff and I have been talking about for a few years, it's either I commit to the KVM system and I go all out, or I do the laptop as kind of an in-between. And having the monitor there without having to figure out another monitor in this build was the reason I went with the laptops. So if this was
I
KVM,
can totally see
and
that.
yeah, if this was KVM, I would have to figure out a separate monitor for that system. And this monitor that you see here actually folds down and the whole drawer slides in. So it's already kind of pre-designed.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I would love to go back to what Jeff's talking about, what you're talking about, for sure.
Yeah, I totally get it, and that's where I can see both sides, and I'm on the fence about it, because one of the things that we built out for conferences, we've got 6 of these big racks that have a 46-inch monitor that folds up, and then it's got 2 PCs, Jeff, 2 PCs. As well as 2 Mac Minis in there, and then it all running off a 4ME ATEM. And so the thing is that what I got to this point was when I was instructing the techs that were running it in each room, is I said the number one rule is that you are never to switch your monitoring. So you should always be able to see everything. So, which is exactly what Jeff was saying. You can see all of the heads. You can see all of those outputs.
And that was a big problem
machine.
I had with all the computers in a circle like that. Is like I couldn't see if a stream failed. I couldn't see anything.
Yeah, and this is the problem that we would run into, is that in the heat of the moment, when you need to fix something, if you first have to switch your monitoring, you're delayed, right? And it's an extra cognitive load, right? You're not like, okay, there it is, I can see exactly what it's doing. No, I've got to, and you can do all your fanciness on the Stream Deck, but it's still a point where you've got to think, oh, hang on, I need to change that output to this input so I can see what's going on with that computer. That's a fail right from the start, right? And so that's where sometimes what we end up doing is getting a 24-inch monitor and a keyboard and mouse, and we sit them all out on trestles, and now those 4 computers that are in the rack all have a monitor, mouse, and keyboard that are on them 100% of the time, and you can look over at any point and you can see exactly what it's doing. At least the primary monitor, you can see what it's doing. And so then obviously that big rack is not flyable, and so we needed to build a fly version of that rack, and of course we just did it with laptops. So we built out a rack that has a bunch of docks in it, all Thunderbolt 4 docks, and so that we can output, we have everything go out and the power and everything. And now, I mean, single point of failure, but it works great, is a single Thunderbolt cable. Admittedly, we do pay the $400 and buy the Apple 10-foot cables, the Thunderbolt cables, and they are brilliant. They're just rock solid. But so then we've got one cable goes to a laptop, Mac or PC, and we have all that. They're all they can be multi-compatible, which is really nice. All 4 of those docks, we plug it in. It's now got separate Ethernet, separate Dante Ethernet. It's 2.5 gig. Then it's got 2 monitor outs, and it's everything is all kind of gone through that dock. But at the end of the day, we have a laptop where the mouse and keyboard, the touchpad that we can get control of, and we can always see. And there is something to be said about an operator that's able to pinpoint and look exactly at a laptop. So it depends on the situation, but there are some things, like arguably perhaps Spotify, sometimes background music doesn't need to be triggered. Put it on repeat, have it playing the whole time, you mute it, it's there ready. And that could totally be on a Mac Mini or whatever, sitting off somewhere, and you don't need to access it necessarily. It's just playing it out. But some things like that. But yeah, but I'm totally on the fence about it, because you can save a lot of space by going to little Mac Minis or whatever.
For sure. Yeah, and we have the OWC docks as well. They're kind of hard to see in this configuration, but they're up here, and so it's the one cable. I will say, though, these are the older generation, the 14-port version, and the driver, or whatever it's called, for the Ethernet port doesn't play with Dante correctly. So we had to use a separate dongle to make those work. But we found 90-degree cables that basically fit the laptops
I was going to ask you
perfectly.
that. Yeah, I was going to ask you
so
that. How are you getting them to squeeze in there?
Yeah, this side isn't as good. So I'll try to zoom in here, and you can see that these are going upright. So this is not ideal. We actually have one that goes back 90 degrees, so it goes this way, basically.
Is that an adapter, or is it on the cable itself?
So this is an adapter, but I bought a separate cable, and I don't know if it's photographed well, but let's see if I can see it. Well, so right there, this laptop is plugged in, and so it's way cleaner. Yeah. With that.
And that's a Thunderbolt 4 cable, or?
It is, yeah. And those go up to the docks right there. You can see them on the top of the rack here. And those are also 90 degree on the other side. So, yeah. You can see Jeff in the background. So,
hey, look at him squinting.
Yeah. It's the theme of the show is the
whole time.
Yeah. Whole time, nothing but squints. So.
That's all really interesting, and the VIA thing, I think where I've got away from VIA or just never had to touch it is I would rather use loopback and set up a virtual output that is going to, you know, channels 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, and I can mix, and I can do it that way. And then it depends on the software. As long as the software, you can say, this is my output device, and it happens to be a loopback device, I've had great success with that. And so sometimes I'm running like Unity, a program feed back into Unity, and I'll do it that way. And so I can use channels 15 and 16 of Dante, and have it go back in there, and use loopback for that. So that's where I've gotten around it a little bit.
I love it. Yeah, actually, Jeff had the same suggestion on the day as well. So that's cool.
Right, on the day. Yeah, thanks. Not on the test day.
It was a little too late to start making big changes like that. So
yeah. As Guy says, just leave the knife in. Leave the knife in. Don't pull the knife out.
Seriously.
Yeah.
For sure.
Just go with it. Let's just see. We've got a couple of questions. I'm sure there's a bit more show and tell. We'll get a couple of these questions here. What is the trade-off in size versus service? Can you maintain your level of service as you grow? What might be the ideal size for your media company? It's from Roscoe.
Great levels of questions there. So the trade-off basically comes down to how many valuable things do we add to our equation for live production, right? So if you think about what do we do as far as live production goes, like there's audio, there's cameras, there's lighting, right? Streaming. Those are kind of the core four for us. And then there's graphics, playback, PowerPoint, live streaming, of course, that's kind of part of the core. And then remote presenters and teleprompters. So I kind of have this cheat sheet. I guess I'll show it. I was reluctant to show it, but I'll go ahead and show it because it has a real breakdown of stuff. But so this is essentially how we try to break down our system. And so platinum, gold, and silver are kind of our three standard packages. And so you can kind of see how we think through those offerings. And so at the bottom, those core things that we offer, you get all 6 if you're in the platinum package. For a gold, you might get 4 out of the 6, right? So you may not need graphics, or you may not need a teleprompter, right? And so that would fit a gold package a little bit better. And a silver is basically 2 out of the 6, right? So it's essentially, this sheet comes from me saying, how do I like systematize and package what we offer into a simple thing that a client can understand and follow. And then my hard costs also go up as we scale up, right? So on the platinum side, we're looking at a crew of 8 people, right? Opposed to like the silver package, which is like a crew of 3 people. And so obviously there's more costs in that sense. There's more gear in that sense. And so I'm not saying this is a perfect system, but it's kind of currently what we're doing and thinking through. We also have, I call it different verticals. So like types of projects that could use our services. So conferences, trade shows, all hands meetings or corporate communication events, social streams, right? These are all different types of verticals that might need our services. And each one of those verticals has a slightly different package offering that we have for that. So, yeah.
Yeah, you may not need a teleprompter, for a social event or whatever it is. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's also a building block. So it's like if you needed to add it, you totally could. But like you just said, not everybody's going to need it per se, unless you're on office hours or extra hours like us, and you like looking eye to eye on a live stream. So
yeah, there is something very tricky about, particularly when it comes to gear, and I think there might be a shift in this a little bit, because at the end of the day, the client doesn't care whether you're using a DM7, a DM3, or a DM7, right? DM5, as in, they don't care if your gear is able to do way more than you need it to do. They don't care if you're using a 4M switcher or a 1M switcher, but it's what they need. What is the requirement that they have? I think that the console is the audio console is a good example of it, where it's like you may need a little bit of extra routing possibility, but often you could get away with using a smaller desk. And I mean, you could even use an analog desk for that matter.
No, you can't. No.
I agree with
Nobody should.
I'm doing an event coming up in a few weeks. It's a really small one. It's on an island, and there's an AV company, and they're like, "Here's your little Yamaha, like the Z10,
or at least it's not a Behringer 1202 or something like that."
Yeah, but it's basically that, and I'm like, I'm not using that. But the point is at what point is it like, this is the package, and we're going to deliver the outcome that you want with the gear that we're going to use, with whatever gear we're going to use, and you're not necessarily renting the gear. You're purchasing the service, and we've talked about this for years on Office Hours, and you get Alex started on this, where it's like we're buying the spaghetti meal, we're not buying the pasta and the cheese and and it's like, it's not a menu where you're pulling apart the ingredients. This is the service that we're offering, and if we choose to use the $15,000 console versus the $1,000 console, well, that's our choice to make sure that the event goes really well. But I get it. It's like you're then competing with someone else who is only using the $500 console, right? And so it is a really tricky thing. And then it becomes about the relationship that you have with the clients and the trust that you build up with them, and that you continue to build on it.
I think it also comes to the RFPs too, like the RFPs that you get. Like I'm bidding on one now that I've been at the site for 10 years. I've done the broadcast for 5, and they don't understand tech, period. And so it doesn't matter what I put in and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to have this, we're going to bring this. And so that's nothing but the RFP that we're fitting, that the broadcaster that's taking the source from us, because we're just building a world feed for them, they have very specific requirements, very specific. Like one of them was no Blackmagic cameras, period, on any production. Period. Right. I mean, it was in there 3 or 4 times actually, because we have competition in our market that's what they were using. Yeah. They couldn't rack them or shade them. They couldn't do anything. They just couldn't get a consistent picture. So that's what that overall broadcaster that's taken our feed, that's what they specified, that these are what you had to have. They even went down to it as what crew members too, because our competition was getting by with people having 3 and 4 jobs, and that was not efficient, and so the production itself would suffer. as soon as somebody had to take a restroom break or whatever. So
Right.
I agree with you on the idea of we should sell ourselves and our production and our ability to deliver. That's what we should sell. But at a certain point, we still have to be able to compare apples to apples. And I think that's where the gear list does still play a big part.
It's really tough because we want to be doing value-based pricing of saying what is the outcome that we're achieving and how valuable is that to our client, right? That's where we want to be. But the reality a lot of the times, whether we like it or not, is we're still cost plus of like, what does it cost me? What is my labor? And am I going to mark that up enough to make a profit? And it's two completely different mindsets. But like Jeff just said, like sometimes they need 3 proposals or they're going to bid it out to 3 different companies or whatever. And you have to find a way to compare. And the relationship is huge though, because man, you can get a client and they can be with you for several years and like they're not going to worry about saving 10% or 30% on a company because they're like, I know Jeff delivers, like he's going to get the ball across the finish line, that kind of thing. So yeah.
But then they come back too, and whenever it comes not to be profitable for us and we give them, hey, this is what the price has to be, and they're like, we just don't have it. And that's one of the ramps I'm trying to run up right now.
Yeah,
it's tough. Yeah.
I realized the hour went very quickly. We've got a few more questions here. Have you both got a little bit more time? We can just push through this. Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, you've only got a generator to find and tell people how to use it.
And this generator, guys, it wasn't a little pull it out of your back of your pickup generator. It's the size of a semi-trailer. It's huge. I looked over, I'm on the 5th floor, and they're like, something's on fire. And I'm like, oh, great. I've already done a fire drill yesterday. I'll tell you about that another time. And then I was like, okay, well, our power flashed a few times, so I walked to the back, and then they're like, yeah, come see it. I'm like, I can see from the 5th floor, and I could just see smoke billowing out of it. So it was not a good scene at all.
Not ideal. No.
No.
There's a part of Roscoe's question that I really do like, and I think it picks up a little bit, Noah, on when you're talking about the different roles, and you are kind of like understanding all of those different roles is really key. The question I guess I have for you is, what is the role that only you can do in that example at the Takeover event? I know you mentioned about you're probably pulled in a few different directions, and particularly kind of stage managing as well, like, trying to help with that as well as keeping on top of other stuff. What is the role that you can more easily replace, and then what's the role that you end up with? And this is unique to every person, right? You can't say this for a company, because often what we talk about is that people can rise to their highest level of incompetence, right? And so they actually, as the company grows, they go to the top, and they might be the worst at sales or interaction with people or executive producing, that sort of stuff. They might be terrible at that, but what they were is an amazing vision switcher or camera director or whatever. And so it was like seeing where that role. Do you have any insight into that as to where you best fit in that show?
It's such a brilliant observation and question, because I think it's a very self-reflective thing, and I'll answer it the best I can. But Jeff, maybe you can shed some insights of like how you've seen me work and what you would suggest. But for me, I feel like I'm naturally gravitating towards the coordinator, communicator of like big picture and bringing the team together just to get the thing done. But I also realized that at least in my company, and Jeff's the same way, I'm the chief problem solver, right? So when something goes wrong, I'm the person diving in head over heels, like to try to figure out how to fix it. And I'm the backstop in that sense. I will say it is really, really a joy to have somebody like Jeff on the team as well, like, because he's another production company, like, and we partnered with him right on this one. So to be able to turn to Jeff and be like, hey man, I didn't spend enough time on the Dante network. Can you set this up? Like, and he's like, no problem. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, those are my favorite people to work with. If like people who are competent, who know what they're doing, that like they can jump in and make stuff happen. But yeah, I kind of want to turn the question on Jeff a little bit of like, where do you see my strengths and what should I do more of and do less of?
You should let other people talk to Elon when he calls in on Zoom, because he hogged that. I mean, all by himself. He didn't want anybody else to talk.
Fair enough.
Yeah. No, I think you do a great job at juggling all the juggles, but I know from being in the same position of in my business and my productions and stuff we're building, I'm the brain behind the build, so it becomes me answering all the questions. Well, at the same time, I'm at the top of the company and I need to talk to the client. Well, things kind of go to a little crawl as it's in the midst of it, though I've got a lot of good team members also that can pick up and just run with what needs to be done. And it's taken a bit for me to be able to step back and go, okay, well, it's not exactly how I do it, but it got done. So there's some of those things too. It's tough. It's a tough thing to do. I mean, I've been in business for 40 plus years. So over the years, it took me a long time to learn to just let somebody else do it. It's not my way or the highway always. And I think the biggest challenge that any of us have is, as a primary in the company, is being able to interface with the client and also be involved with all the proper decision-making process to be able to make the right decisions and be the backstop, like you said, to be that answer for whatever happens to be, because we put it together. So it's tough. And then it's also tough whenever I walk in and I don't know, as I was working with Noah on this one, it's like, I don't know where this cable goes. I don't know what it's plugged into. It's a black cable. And that's all I know. It's like, so
it's black on both ends.
Yeah, that's all I know. And so
right.
at my side, I felt like I was useless. And sometimes it's like, look, it's good. I could trace all this stuff down, but it was just easier to say, hey, Noah, where do these cables go? So I know what's plugged into what, so I could figure out the best way to make it better. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges is anytime we're building stuff, is if you don't fully document it and then have that ahead of time so everybody knows this is the layout of the wiring or whatever. And also, things have to be changed, of course, when you get on site at some times, but in the racks especially, that's probably my biggest challenge.
Yeah, I have a story similar to that because I freelanced with somebody in our pool of office hours, and I really loved working with their company, but they have an amazing engineer, and he just has an amazing kit. And so I subbed in for him, not knowing his kit as well as he did. And we got the show done, but it just wasn't as good because like he knew where every wire is and he built the system, right? And so a few gigs later, he was freed up to come be on set, and it was just a night and day difference, like having him there, partly because, I'm in my 30s and he's in his 50s. So he's got the skills and experience that I don't, but, designing and building the kit too. So it was just a real big relief to have the designer of the system there on set. And I'm sure if I worked for you, it'd be the same thing of like, Jeff knows his kit. I'm going to feel like a kid lost in the candy store, so to speak, like, not knowing the kit. Whereas like, I'm obviously comfortable with my own system too. So, yeah.
It's a fascinating discussion because there's an argument to be made that as the primary point person for the client, you kind of need to always be available to them at any point, because the last thing you want is that you're head down under a rack, lying on the ground trying to fix a cable, and the client's like, hey, we got this problem, Elon's saying he can't talk or whatever it is, right? You're like, it's the worst place for you to be because you've got no other point person. And so arguably you have to say, as the point person for the client, you are not needed in any other place. That is your primary role. And the show will run without you doing anything. So then the question is that actually what you want to do though? Like is is it you just being just with the client and spending that time? The thing that I know, it's much harder to find really good people that understand the tech enough that can interpret that to a client, who are also really great with a client. It's harder to find those people than it is to find the techs that can make the show happen. And so often when we are the point person, we can do both, but you can't easily replace a client point person as easy as you can. And it's not to say it is easy, but you can find more techs than you can find client liaison sort of people. And then you have to step back and say, do I want to spend the whole event just hanging around with the client and doing some, stage managing? Because that stage managing role can be that client interaction, right? Because that can work beautifully, but you're only ever on the side of the stage. You're never going back. You're never going back behind the stage and fixing things or whatever. But it depends on what role, because you can replace it. You can have, we've got an account manager or or an executive producer or someone who you've brought on who manages the client, and then you're able to still, kind of be on the gear a bit more. But it's a big challenge, isn't it?
Absolutely. I would say it's a lot. The sports analogy pops in my mind of like, I'm currently essentially the quarterback, but I should be the coach, right? And like,
right.
If I can switch roles and become the coach, I don't need to be the main person on the field, like running the game. I could be the coach giving the plays from the sideline, so to speak. And like, as I mature, like I'm 34 now, like as I mature, hopefully I become more and more like the coach and less like the quarterback,
Maybe. It depends on what you dream about though, right? Like when you put your head on the pillow at night, if you're thinking about routing matrices and particular gear and, how to make all that work, that might be an indicator of where you're best being. Sure. And it's possible that you have a potentially like, and this is what I did 5 years ago, is I got a business partner who is more, a business guy and a sales guy, and kind of gets all that, does all this client work, and it leaves me just to mess around with the gear and to come up with, dream up new ways of doing things and making that work. And that's been an incredible, like for 5 years, it's been game changing for me, because he's able to manage the business, and I'm able to just keep doing all that, the tech stuff that I love doing. But it could be the other way around. It could be that you just continue dreaming about the different clients you can get, different, that type of stuff, and then you find someone that can be the tech geek and make all that stuff happen. But it depends on the individuals. But that's great questions. Sure. Great questions, Roscoe. It was nice. I think he said, this is the issue with a small company that grows. The owner, who has been doing everything, needs to step back and find and trust other people to take over specific areas that they are skilled at. This can also be dangerous to the small company. Yeah, that's totally it. Some great comments there. All right, we'll do some speed round here. I think that's that one. Zach Jeffers, I saw a number of events this last weekend using light meters to white balance all of the LED walls, stage lighting, cameras, etc. What's the process for color accurate production? Any thoughts on that?
I have a real basic answer, but hopefully Jeff has more. I basically will match lighting to skin tones, right? And so if it's 5600, right, for your lights or whatever, that's what your cameras want to be set to for skin tones. The LED wall, at least in my opinion, is secondary, but it still needs to be matched. So if we need to dial it in from there, we will. And at least at my church, there's been a difference between what the camera sees and what the eye will see. So, and I think that might frankly be because it's a cheaper LED wall. I haven't spent the time to troubleshoot that system yet, but like I said, maybe Jeff has a better insight of how he does his system with LED walls.
It's a juggle, especially with the LEDs, depending on the quality of the walls. White is still white. So if you can match up and have what is white supposed to be white, it's a good way to start from it. But there is just so many variables in that, and it comes down to also whether or not the LED wall is a IMAG use. So whether you're putting people's with their skin tone on there, and if the people that are in the audience can see that skin tone, or relatively close to it, or if they have a red shirt on, that's another one that will throw you for loops, because it's definitely done that for me. And I'm like, I don't like that red. I don't like that red. And you look inside, it's like, oh, they're not wearing red. No wonder. Okay, so yeah, so those are things that you have to make sure that you're accurate, but at the same time, it's just a matter of dialing in the colors. With a LED wall, it's RGB. It's red, green, and blue. Sometimes some walls have white, but very few. Now, it's usually just RGB, and so you have to get that color mix correct, or else it's not going to be right. But that just starts from the beginning and making sure it works, and it's not easy at all. It's a skill.
Yep, it is. Last question, Vic Hernandez. How valuable can it be to accepting a position you're overqualified for? My take on this is for cash flow. I mean, if you're overqualified for it, but it can bring in some money and you're not getting any money anywhere else, it can be good for cash flow. It can be good just keeping the skills in as well, even if it is basic, and just doing it exceptionally well, because you never know how you can turn a small client into a big client, and just getting opportunity, because it's always exposure to more people, and people see how well you do something, and then word of mouth gets around. It's all of those things. But and it's just a quick point. I've talked about it before, but talking about the business manager partner of mine, I was doing an event for many years for like about a 20 grand job, and within a couple of years, my business manager turned it into a 50 grand job. Right, pretty similar sort of work that we were doing, but it was intentionally charging for all those extra things that we were just kind of throwing in, and then widening the service offering. And now it's still the same 2 days that I'm working on that event, but it's doubled the income. But it started as that smaller event, so that's why doing smaller jobs, I think, can be of value.
That's excellent. Yeah, for me, it's keeping the mindset that like you're never done learning, right? So like, yeah, you might feel overqualified, but if you're intentional about your time and effort and energy, like you never know what you're going to pick up and learn and grow in. And yeah, I mean, Grant's right. If from a financial perspective, or like if you have the time and you're available, it's like, why not? It's better to get the extra reps in a lot of the time, not every time.
I would agree also. I mean, I'm still doing jobs that I know a lot about, but I still enjoy it. And, every chance that I could get out there and maybe convert somebody over to a better way of a workflow, maybe get them away from using Macs and they'll start using PCs instead and be more fluent and better.
You're pushing uphill there. It's not going to work.
but it could, and half the effort there is just helping them understand that friends don't let friends use Macs all the time.
Fair enough. Enough. All right. So we normally finish off with a content recommendation. I didn't prep you guys, but and I think I'm trying to think. I haven't seen many lately. I'm trying to remember what even mine was. Have you got something, Jeff?
Yes, I do. Foundation, sci-fi. I'm a big sci-fi fan. That show will put you to sleep in a matter of 4 minutes, 5 minutes tops. It is so slow. I want to watch it so bad, but I haven't made it to the first episode. I think in this second, third season, whatever it's on. I really want to watch it. It looks great. It's got great effects and everything, but I can't make it through the first episode first. So maybe it's not the greatest, but of a recommendation. But if you're sleepy, just like that, that'll put you out.
Very good. Noah, you got something?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed Silo, the series. I think it's on Apple. It's been pretty solid. Mm-hmm. I found out that one of my buddies was the writer on it, one of the writers on it. So I was like, oh, that's cool. And then shameless plug, if you want to see a full behind the scenes of X Takeover or the BETX event, you can check out the Corporate Streams YouTube channel and see a walkthrough of both events there.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Well, thank you both. That was cool. That was really fun. It feels like we just touched on a few topics that we could just about do an hour on each. And we'll have to do it again soon. A special thank you to Taylor, who kind of quarterbacks all of this, making it all happen, together with Robert, Peter, and Richard, who are making things happen on Vector tonight. And thank you all for hanging around and asking questions. You can catch us next week. And, of course, there's a few questions that were pushed back. You could ask those questions probably tomorrow at Office Hours Daily Show at 7 a.m. Pacific. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.